see what's going on here. See how it's bunching up kind of nicely at the bottom here? Gives you a nice natural kind of feel. And having it drag across the floor gives you a nice feel as well. We'll see what this looks like a little bit later. But for now, I can tell that I'm ready to run the actual animation simulation. The simulation that we ran just now, Simulate Local, does not account for anything that's been keyed in the timeline. It's just a static, at this point in time, this is what the cloth will look like under the effect of gravity. So I like using this as my initial state. So I can actually set the initial state to be this, and then when it runs the animation, it won't simulate the dropping part first. So let me do that real quick. Set initial state. I can still reset it. I thought it would reset it to flat, but to get it back to be flat, then I'd have to, I guess, delete the cloth and reset that up, but that's not too bad. This is the way I want it. But now, it's not animated. So what I'm going to do now is actually run a full simulation. So it's a good idea to do a save, just in case the simulation crashes. It doesn't happen much, but it can, so it's a good idea to save your work. And then I'm going to run the simulation. A little window will come up here on the left. You can see that the curtain now starts to pull. And we got a nice start. So now, once it's been simulated, I can pull my timeline bar back and forth and see the effect. You can see there's a couple things we can adjust. One is the timing. Right now it stops before it has a chance to settle. So I'm going to go into time configuration and add, let's see, 80 frames of animation. Oops, it should be 180, excuse me. Now if I run the simulation, it'll include some time at the end for it to kind of settle. Something else that's going wrong is you can see the cloth kind of folds over itself. It's not what we call self-colliding. We can fix that by going into the object properties, selecting the curtain. Oops, I think I'm in the wrong area. Where is that? I think it's just right in the main parameters. Yep. Right in the main parameters under simulation parameters, there's a self-collision toggle. I'm going to turn that on and set it to 1. So every time it goes through a frame of calculation, it'll check once to see if the cloth is intersecting or potentially going to intersect, and it'll stop itself from intersecting. If you want it to be more accurate, you would give it more iterations of self-check. But just 1 is usually enough to get started. And something else I'm going to do is select my cloth, make another save here. Oops, wrong menu. And then, oops, let me just do a hold. That'll be good enough. And let's run that simulation again. First thing I need to do is erase the current simulation. And then, let's see. This is why you save. Make sure that my self-collision is still on. Yep, that's good. Okay, so now at the beginning of the animation, I'm going to erase the simulation. So now nothing is simulated. The mistake I made is I erased the simulation at the end, and I didn't have my starting point anymore. So it's important that you do that, erase simulation at the beginning. Anyway, now I'll resimulate. I'll start from the beginning again. And it is a little chunky because I did such a low resolution in my garment maker. I have to reset up the nulls, I believe, to change that, but the higher density you get your mesh to begin with, the less crinkly it becomes. But surprisingly, we can fix a little bit of that already. You can see the effect is still working. Something else I can try, here's if I go back and erase the simulation again, I can try it with a new cloth simulation preset. So if I want to go back and try it with just cotton, it might be a lighter fabric. I think the lighter fabrics tend to sway a lot more at the end too. Tend to not come to a rest very. So, like I said, the last thing you can try is going down to the garment maker, increasing the resolution, but I believe you have to reset the nulls. Another way we can smooth this out a little bit is to, on top of the cloth, add an HSDS modifier. It's kind of like Turbo Smooth for cloth. Not specifically, but it's kind of like what we're doing here. With this HSDS, I can select the element subobject, select the curtain, and then subdivide it. You can see it added a little bit more geometry. Post. That way, the benefit to doing it this way is you get the result of more complex geometry, but you don't have to calculate in the simulation all that geometry. So the last thing we can do is, if you need to see both sides or give it some thickness, is to give it a little shell modifier. Again, doing this at the end provides the result that we want without having extra geometry in the cloth simulation. So now the curtain is a little thicker now. Maybe an inch thick is too much, but there we go. This way I could render to both sides as well. So now when it bunches up, it's not as rigid. If I had more nulls, it wouldn't drape so much at the top. So that would help too. Plus I think the heavier cloth seems to work a little bit better too. So let me rerun this with the wool. So hopefully this gives you enough information to produce something similar. I think I would go back and maybe do something with a little bit higher density mesh, maybe more nulls to work with, just to kind of soften up some of the bunching up.
I did that in the groups. Actually saved the old.
Oh, the nulls do get adapted? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll try that real quick.
And they just saved the ones that were closest to where it was before.
Ah, okay. Well, let's try that. First, let's see how this turned out as is. That feels pretty good, actually. But I guess we can try this. What I mentioned before is, let me save this just to make sure, in case it doesn't work. If you go back under the garment maker and increase the density a couple notches, maybe 0.2. That makes it a little bit more dense. And let's see if we can run the simulation again. We first do a local to get it to drop. You can see here when you increase the geometry, the simulation runs a lot slower. So it looks like it does save that null information pretty well. So if I was patient, I could let this finish simulating, and I'd probably have a lot better folding occurring. I'm not going to let the demo run through that wait though, so let me go ahead and escape out of this. Like I said, experiment with this, try it out, save your work, but this should be enough to get you started. And I'll stop the recording here.